Welcome to Chapter 1 of OPMA 649, Purchasing and Supply Management. We'll also talk throughout the course about project management, but the focus, at least at the start, will be purchasing and logistics. So we're going to talk about the evolution of supply chain, what it is, make sure that people are comfortable with the terminology, difference between operations management, supply chain, maybe even a bit of a discussion about value chain. We're going to, a lot of this you've dealt with before, as this is introductory, operating versus strategic decisions and strategies, direct and indirect costing and strategies. We'll talk about profit leverage, return on assets, or also known as ROI, return on investment. So some of the factors that have changed over the last number of years is the emphasis on outsourcing, although there are some trends in certain industries to insource. Outsourcing has not turned out to be the panacea that some people thought it would be. Greater dependence or interdependence with suppliers on the design and building responsibilities, such as the Boeing Dreamliner, the 787 plane, where it was a global supply chain. So different countries made different components. Engines were made by, if I remember correctly, Rolls-Royce. And different components were made in France and other countries in the world. Companies now compete based on their global supply chain. Even small organizations can access manufacturing in China. And the evolution of information systems with blockchain in particular, data analytics, and the trend to reducing the number of suppliers, but also building relationships with suppliers. We'll talk about that during the course. We're also going to discuss environmental factors and how sustainable supply chain is important and is actually an advertising and strategic advantage. We're going to talk about risk. We're going to talk about ways to increase revenue and customer satisfaction. Customer satisfaction, by the way, is related to, do you meet or exceed customer expectations? Ways to reduce the cost of ownership and reducing lead times. One of the major themes in supply chain is to reduce the lead times, and that will reduce things like inventory. It'll reduce the bullwhip effect. It will increase the profitability of a company, and it will also increase accuracy in forecasts because you don't have to forecast as far into the future. Sustainability, again, balancing and trying to minimize financial and operational risks along with your reputation. So this is just a bit of a history lesson, which I'm sure some of you don't necessarily care about, the 1800s or 1900 and 1950 or 1970 or days, even 1990s. We care more about the present and what supply chain is. When I went to university, there was no discussion about supply chain. And now it is almost a course that all students should take, at least an introductory course, to understand how businesses really operate. We teach how certain parts of business operate, but an accounting student does not know about supply chain. And the responsiveness of your organization to the market and to customers. One of the things we're used to with the technology, and even a course like this, which we're going to operate in a hybrid manner. So this part is the asynchronous part, and we will do synchronous during class time. And because we can do that with the technology that we have, we don't have to sit there in a classroom for 3 hours and take notes or listen to a drying, boring professor like myself who just listen to me talk for 3 hours. So today we're going to focus on, in today's world, we focus on strategies, globalized supply chains, sustainability, things that have already been mentioned. Again, here's an evolution of supply chain. Again, I'm not going to go through all of the details, but it is quickly evolving type of organization. And with the pandemic, there's been radical changes to the supply chain. The way people will purchase goods and services in the future will change. For example, a lot of people that are enjoying not having to go grocery shopping. Just order it, drive up, they put it in your vehicle, drive away. Some organizations offer that service for free or a very small charge. And even things like services. TELUS has, in the last, TELUS has purchased a telehealth organization. And the first experience that I had with this a few months ago, or I guess several months ago now, anyways, was incredibly positive. One of the things that a lot of people don't like is going to a doctor's office, sitting there, with a bunch of sick people, which isn't necessarily the smartest thing to do, and then sitting and waiting for your doctor to eventually show up. The doctor was on time. The first time I talked to him, it was video, and since I've talked to him, we just do it over the phone. It's done in like 5 minutes. So it's good for the doctor because the more patients they see, the more money they make. And it's good for the patient. You don't have to drive anywhere. And I also like the fact that every time so far in the last year, the doctor's been on time, which is a real blessing, a real change in mentality. So supply chain, as you can see, there's operational, which are day-to-day or more tactical types of things, actually getting product out the door, and then strategic types of responsibilities. So how we're going to do it, and sort of bigger picture types of things. So again, receiving inventory, inspecting inventory, warehousing, inventory control, materials management or handling, scheduling, transportation in and out through, and Calgary in particular is a hub. It's sort of an inland hub because of our geographical location and the airport. There's a lot of warehouses out near the airport or Cross Iron Mills, Walmart, Sobeys, and Amazon, and several others. Even Costco, the warehouse for the warehouses is in Airdrie. So we need to, this is a typical part of the supply chain or the procurement process. You need something. Gap analysis, where you are and what you need. So what you have and what you need. We need to turn it into a product, okay? So you need to identify, okay, I'm thirsty, but how am I going to quench that thirst? We search for potential suppliers. This is typical business decision making. Identify a problem, come up with alternatives, like identify the criteria, develop alternatives, evaluate, make a recommendation, and you should follow up on it to see if it was a good decision. But a lot of times we don't do that because we don't have the time. So look for potential suppliers. This can take quite a bit of time and effort. Like I've had students who've worked for the city of Calgary in the purchase of the LRT, the trains, and that was obviously very big decision making. And they would go to various plants to see and identify whether that company could actually deliver the product. You agree on contract terms. It's not just price. It's payment, it's delivery dates, it's what if some things go wrong, if there are penalties for it being late, etc. And then you actually get the product, and then you make a payment if everything is satisfactory. Right? And logistics is, I know that some of my colleagues who teach logistics hate this about planes, trains, and automobiles, but to a degree, it's basically moving things. And one of the best organizations that is considered for moving things from one place, from where they are to where they need to be, is the military. I know several instructors who've worked for Royal Military College, and they often teach courses in logistics. The military are absolute experts at moving people, materials, equipment from where it is to where it needs to be in a timely manner, and that's a major part. So you can make of supply chain. So you can build a car, a Lexus in Japan, but unless you get it to Calgary, it's kind of worthless. You need to plan to how do you get it from the plant in, they make Lexus in Ontario too, but where it comes from the Lexus plant to the actual place where the consumer will buy it. And there's all kinds of modes of transportation. So here's some of the activities and logistics. I'm not going to go through and read this. You're quite capable of doing that on your own. By the way, reverse logistics is returns. Some companies, even before the pandemic, like Walmart, if you return something to Walmart and they returned it to their warehouse, just threw it away. They literally threw it away because it's just too expensive. Supply chain is all downstream. So that goes from, say, raw materials to manufacturing, to fabrication, to whatever the case may be, to distribution, to the retailer, to the consumer. But going from the consumer backwards is very challenging and very expensive. It's not the way supply chain is designed. And I've been involved in reverse logistics, and it's a painful process. But there's also opportunities in reverse logistics. I'll mention it now that one of the courier companies figured this out. If a person bought a laptop and it was under warranty, what would normally happen with the reverse logistics, this was part of FedEx. I met a person at a conference a couple of years ago. So FedEx would take the laptop, say from Calgary, send it to the repair center in, say, Vancouver. It would get repaired. Then FedEx would pick it up and bring it back. Well, FedEx realized, wait a minute, why can't we get certified? Why can't we get certified technicians to repair Asus, Acer, Dell, whomever sold the laptop? Why we can get trained technicians in Calgary. So maybe there's not enough business for Dell just for Calgary, but there would be enough business for Dell, Asus, Acer, on and on for repairing laptops. So what they did was they hired some techs, some computer repair techs. They now pick up the laptop, take it to their repair place in Calgary, or the nearest one, and repair it and send it back. So it's a lot less expensive so they get certified by whomever the manufacturer is that your people are qualified to repair our products. So it'd be equivalent to this. If your car needed to be repaired, they don't send it to the Toyota plant to get new brake pads installed, okay? You take it to a dealership, those people are qualified and trained in how to repair your vehicle, and you get it back within perhaps a couple of hours. So it's much faster. It's nobody would even necessarily think to take your car, have to ship it somewhere to get fixed and then bring it back. Even major things like replacing an engine in a car, that's done at the dealership. They're qualified and trained to do that. Again, supply chain is about, I sometimes describe it as everything. And to be more specific about it, again, it's everything from the very start to the sale, and even beyond the sale where you have customer support. And the integration these days, and sharing point of sale information. Walmart will only share their point of sale information with one company, and that is Procter & Gamble. So there's, again, characteristics of strategic procurement and sourcing. So you have the executive leadership, which will make decisions as to strategies. Numbers of years ago, Walmart decided to do single source. So they'll buy all of the product. You make product Y, Walmart will come in and buy all of it. Sears decided to spread it out. Well, we know what the results were. So Sears would buy the product from a few different suppliers. Walmart would just buy it from one. Now, the problem with the Walmart mentality is that supplier goes out of business, you have no supplier anymore. But unless it's an incredibly unique product, you can often get somebody else to make it for you. So again, I'll let you read some of these other points. I don't think this is going to be lectures or presentations on each one of these individually. You're quite capable of being MBA students, knowing about what functional leadership is, the accounting department, the manufacturing department, the marketing department, whatever the case would be, and you understand strategies and functional types of leaderships and positioning. And again, the biggest thing with supply chain is a much more integrated approach to providing whatever your product or service to your customers. And again, some of the different strategies you have, standardization. So one of the things that happened in the automotive industry over the last 2 decades is the fact that the same engine that goes in a Toyota, the 6-cylinder engine that goes in a Toyota Camry is the same one that goes in the Sienna van. It's the same one that goes in the Highlander, and even in the Lexus ES model, their basic sedan. They modify it or tweak it a little bit, but their 6-cylinder engine is basically the same for all models. Whereas they used to make a separate engine for each vehicle, and that was incredibly expensive. They had a product that you might see a few still on the road, sorry. It's been out of market for quite some time now. They had a Previa van, and it looks like a jelly bean is the way to describe it. And they had to stop making it because it was very popular at one point, but every part to that van was unique. So in 1996, around 96 or 98, one of the two. Anyways, they came up with the Sienna van, and those, like I said, it's a Camry. It's a Camry platform, and it's got a Camry engine in it, and so they could get some economies of scale. Again, focusing on customers, that might seem fairly basic. One of the things I think that schools could do a better job of, post-secondary schools, is focus on customer orientation. And it may surprise you to hear me say this, students are not the customer. Industry is the customer. If some students may not realize in certain courses what they need to know. How would they know? So if an organization goes to industry, so if a post-secondary school goes to industry, and they say to industry, what do you want us to teach these students while we have them here at our school? And they constantly need to update that. I know schools that will twice a year meet with industry and say, okay, what do you want us to do? One of the big things that has happened in supply chain, when we started, I was involved in developing a brand new supply chain program at SAIT about 10 years ago. We did extensive research with industry and asked them what they wanted. 2 or 3 years in, industry said, by the way, now we'd also like students to do computer simulations. So I introduced 4 computer simulations to my supply chain courses. And in the last couple of years, industry has said, we want students to be much more proficient at Excel. So when I teach statistics, it's heavily based in Excel. Calculations on binomial, Poisson, even hypothesis testing is all done in Excel. Even simple things like creating a bar chart and a pie chart is in Excel. And the biggest thing that is movement, I'm sure you've all heard, is data analytics. Using Power BI or Python or some of the other tools that an industry wants. And they want students to understand how to do pivot tables and things along this line. And so it would be a shame if a student was taking some courses that are still based on pen and paper and tables. And so that is something I have personally changed in the last 4 years. Gone from the old-fashioned tables and calculators to now I teach my students the technology. They don't even focus on the formulas. I give them pre-done spreadsheets where they can go in and look up a p-value and a z-score, and it actually will tell them the answers and tell them the area underneath the curve. That's what industry wants, not me. And the students, that I've taught that way, they know. They don't know what a binomial or a Poisson is, but they know we need to use technology. In my supply chain classes, I use a lot of Excel and not pen and paper because industry says that's what they want. I meet with regularly and talk to former students who are working in industry to try and make sure that I'm doing what I'm aware of I need to do to make you employable. And so I know I perhaps overemphasize that, but customer orientation, students are not the customer. Industry is the customer. I want my students to send me emails saying, wow, I'm really glad I learned how to use Excel in your course. I'm really glad I'm going to be starting to introduce more data analytics. I'm really glad we did that in class. I did an inventory simulation in Excel with my supply chain students, SCMA 451 in the fall. And it really refreshed their memory on how to use logic statements, etc. So I know I went on and on about that topic, but it's very important. Customer orientation. Industry is my customer, not the employer and not the students. Again, profitability levels, you can see that if you have a small decrease in your purchases, so this is before taxes, obviously. So if you can reduce spending by 5%, your purchases go from 300 to 285. Your profits go from 25 to 40. So a 5% reduction in cost can have a 60% increase in profits because they come from, well, in this case, before tax dollars. So if we put taxes in there, the percentage will be the same, but the dollar amount will be less. So again, return on assets or return on investments. Should we invest in inventory? Companies like Amazon currently are investing billions of dollars in their fulfillment centers. One of my U of C grads, currently, this is January of 2021, next month, March at the latest, he will be moving to Dubai. And he is going to be, I'll have to ask him what his position is, but he will be in charge of designing and construction, not just him, but others obviously, of 3 new fulfillment centers, 2 in Saudi Arabia and 1 in Egypt. And so he's going to Dubai for some time, and he's going to be involved in huge investments of assets. And one of the things he's told me is they want to, in essence, start over. Not just take a fulfillment center, their version of a warehouse or distribution center, Amazon calls them fulfillment centers, and come up with a new way of doing it, like start from scratch, which you have to do every once in a while. And so that because once you build it, it's very expensive to modify it. So he's got 3 of them to do that they're planning to build in the next year. So he's got a lot of work ahead of him. All right. Again, supply chain, putting out fires is operational. Preventing, trouble prevention. And then strategies is identifying where are we going to expand to. I mean, the warehouse in Calgary for Amazon is only about 3 years old, 3.5 years old, something like that. So they identified a need that they needed to even build fulfillment centers. At one time, Amazon had no warehouses. When Amazon first started being in business, and they almost went out of business, they were within a couple months of going bankrupt. They had no fulfillment centers. It was a pure online organization selling books. And then they came up with Amazon Prime, and in order to operate Amazon Prime, you need to have fulfillment centers closer to the customer. And again, direct contribution affects the bottom line, and indirect, as you can see, enhances performance of others. You can have 3 different contributions. It can be negative, this could be deficient, neutral, so it's okay, and positive, so it's acceptable or better. And we'll talk about this in the cases. So the manufacturing and service organizations, you can see the difference between the two. I think you all know the difference between a good and a service, and the fact that services are very people-oriented and are actually much harder to manage, and you cannot inventory them. Although, if you think about it, what I'm doing literally as I speak is I'm inventorying a service. And by recording it, I am going to save us quite a bit of class time that you're not going to have to listen to me go over this during class time. And this is going to wind up being the asynchronous part of the course. The synchronous part of the course will be discussing some of the cases from the chapters. So we're only going to spend an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, not 3 hours on every Thursday night. And I'll go over this in the first class, which will be on next Thursday. All right. So opportunities for indirect, reducing total cost of ownership, efficiency, competitive positioning, again, customer satisfaction, which is measured to a degree. Even though you're not my customer, the evaluations that I get from the 4 schools that I teach at, I read the evaluations to this day. They're very important to me. And I wanted to see the effect that it's been getting close to a year now of teaching online, and it has affected my evaluations. They've actually gone up. So, and I think that's a great thing, the way that I'm doing it. And this hybrid, a part class and part on your own time, is a little bit like Netflix. It's on demand. You can listen to this recording anytime you want. You can replay it. You can play portions of it. And my customer satisfaction has actually gone up. So here's some just differentiations in supply chain at the various levels. Again, I don't think it's necessary to talk about each one of these individually, because I don't know about you, but I'm not going to remember all of them. And why should I have to? They're just written in front of me. So you can just look at, and again, like size, small, medium, and large. Like, okay, number of sites, 1, a few, and many, whatever that means. What does a few mean? So again, large and small, medium, and large cap companies in finance. Again, goods or services. Manufacturers do goods. They can also do services, again, by follow-up and training and support, tech support. Services, it's fairly obvious, things like haircuts, counseling services, etc. Strategies, do you want to be a low-cost provider, or do you want to be a differentiated provider, unique, in other words? And again, small, medium, and large. And I'll leave the rest of them for you to take a look at. And we'll talk about them with the cases. Chapter 1 should not be overly arduous for the cases we're going to talk about in class, nor for the case assignment you're going to do. Again, capturing opportunities in the supply chain, identifying, especially with the disruption that has occurred in supply chain, when we can go back to a maskless society, and we can have more socialization and more interaction, that will modify what we're doing now in the midst of the pandemic, but it won't be the same as what it was before. I mentioned about grocery shopping, and I look forward to several of you commenting or making your observations on what will you do. I know that one of the things I'm going to be allowed to do, I have permission from my supervisor at SAIT, that when the day comes when we have classroom setting again, we meet 2 times a week, normally for 2 hours each, that what I'm going to do is this. 1 class per week will be in the classroom, face-to-face, and the other class will be online. So what I'm doing in the interim is I'm spending about half the class time with these pre-recorded lectures, and the other half having classroom discussion and identifying in an interactive, synchronous way of doing things. Again, looking at financial, operational, and reputational risks, improving sustainability, managing growth. Some companies have mismanaged it. One company, I'll give you an example about that. When I first started buying groceries online, I bought them from Superstore. Superstore would charge me $3 to $5 for the service. I didn't have a problem with that. But there was a couple of times where I went there. It took me an hour and a half sitting in my car to get my groceries. And another time I went there, I showed up and they said, "Oh, we're so far behind, it'll be 2 or 3 days before you get your order." Now this is months. This was about 7 or 8 months after the pandemic started. So I started shopping at Walmart. They send me text messages. I show up. There's an app. As soon as I show up, it knows by GPS that I'm actually at the store. It says, "Oh, we see you're here." Okay. What stall are you in? What color is your vehicle? It's free. There's no charge for upgraded substitution. So let's say you buy a no-name tomato juice, and they don't have no-name tomato juice. They will give you, say, the Heinz, or they'll give you the brand name at no additional charge. And they've always been on time. And I don't have to phone somebody. When I went to Superstore, I was phoning, the lines were busy. I phoned and somebody lost the fact that I phoned and said, "I'm here." And with the app, it even tells you, "We're on our way out." Fine. Because they got their supply chain better. So it's not only the fact that it was less expensive, it operates properly. It's like, you just show up, it knows you're here. Oh, and I find the system is much better. It's not even, I don't even care about what the price is of the goods. I think that, their prices are pretty decent. And so, but it works. They do a much better job, in my opinion, than Superstore does of providing that service. So that's an opportunity that personally speaking, I would buy my groceries at Superstore most of the time. Now I buy them at Walmart. And even banks are setting up, because it costs a lot of money to set this up, they're setting up the ability to have Zoom meetings with customers so that you can talk to a customer. And they're in the process of working on that. And like I said, this is January of 2021. So they don't have that capability because they understand the customers still want to talk to a bank manager or a banking officer, but rather than driving to the bank, which we have done, and there's still some things you may want to talk to them about setting up an account or whatever the case may be. So that is changed, just the same as like I was mentioning before about telehealth. And I really look forward to hearing what you students have to say and your experiences either at work or in your own personal lives. And that will make the course a very positive experience. So I hope you've enjoyed chapter 1. As you're studying, there's going to be some cases from chapter number 1 that we're going to go over. And there's going to be an assignment from chapter number 1. So see you in class.